Good day, friends. This is Tracy Brown, and my team and I of non-diet dietitians provide trauma-informed nutrition counseling so you can feel safer in your skin. And this probably will be a short video because I imagine if you're struggling with this that you'll identify it pretty quickly. And it's the very notorious, let's say, cousin of disordered eating, which is perfectionism. And perfectionism is just a cognitive strategy that our brains kind of do to, protect us because we're feeling scared. And we kind of think that if there's some standard by which we do something or say something or look a certain way, that we can protect ourselves from criticism or rejection or whatever. So I'm just going to keep it really quick and short and brief around that definition. But that's the way at least most people come to us is having that prior to usually the dieting or the binging or the whatever the behaviors, that perfectionistic, those tendencies to want to do good. It's just that it's like the pendulum swings way too far instead of like having in your personality the desire for excellence, but knowing when enough is enough with that, it turns into, trying to put thought and effort into standards that aren't necessary to get the desired outcome, which is maybe to connect or to be seen or some validation or whatever. And maybe it feels like this is the only way you can get some of that is that if you're beyond reproach, whether that's the other person's standards or not, that's what your brain has decided. And so how that gets spun up on food is that we just have this idea that if I'm not perfect with my health routine, or if I'm not perfect with my diet, then I can never get the body I want, and therefore I'll never be happy, and I can never be happy unless I'm approved of. You can see how the spin goes, right? And the reality is we forget that we have a body and a mind and heart and other preferences that want to use our energy for other things. And we just lose track and we start to not trust ourselves anymore. A really common way that will play out into food is bring in perfectionistic tendencies into trying to learn how to eat from hunger and fullness. We tell most people, look, you're not going to be good at this at the beginning. If you've been restricting or deprivation-driven eating or binging or whatever you've been doing for a long time, whether that's months or years, and you decide to not do that anymore in terms of like some mental decision. I mean, the day that we decide these things, we're not like acting it out. I know it takes time. There's a process, right? But part of our brain's like, I don't know, I got to do it perfectly. Otherwise I didn't do it right. And the reason we feel that way is because, we want to get rid of any discomfort as fast as possible. But two, diet culture is all about urgency and results and all those kind of things. So it's really, really common. Let's say you start intuitive eating and you're not perfect at it the first week or two. You don't even know when you're hungry and you don't know where the edges are, and you get mad at yourself and you start beating yourself up. That's perfectionism, thinking that somehow after 10 or 50 years of non-attuned eating 90% of the time, that you're going to perfectly intercept your signals. You're going to know what's supportive to your body and what combinations week two. That's very unrealistic standards, right? You're essentially when we start to slowly, for most people, slowly titrate off these behaviors, restricting, binging, whatever, is that each time we do something different, we're getting feedback and we're learning. And we put that in our little internal Rolodex of that worked pretty good, let's try to do that again. But the next time you try to do that, it doesn't perfectly work because maybe the time of day is different, or there's more stressors and you don't feel the same. And again, you get mad at yourself and it's like, wait, let's take a step back again and look at all the factors. And so you're like, okay. Instead of being frustrated with ourselves, it's like every single time we need to eat is another opportunity to learn and take all the factors in as to why this worked and why it didn't work. And you keep learning and you keep learning and you keep learning. And before you know it, you know how to respond to different kinds of signals and different kinds of circumstances. And you start to trust yourself. You become more embodied. And you don't need to perform and try to achieve. It just starts to become more natural because you're slow enough and feeling safe enough inside to listen. part of the safety comes from we're not going to be as hard on ourselves. We're going to be like, this is a process, and perfectionism just can't take me to where I want to go. But if I can see that every opportunity to eat as an opportunity to learn, then I'm actually going to get more out of that messy process than I would get in trying to perform recovery and get it quote unquote perfect, whatever that means, or whomever you're trying to please, or whatever, even with recovery. So I hope this helped. This is how I see so many times that perfectionism sabotages intake. One last thing I'll say, I'll give you another example. If you're struggling with this, is that maybe you're like, well, I meant to eat this lunch, but I had in my head I was going to eat this, and I didn't have it, so I just didn't eat. And I would ask, well, did any part of you think that you had other options or choices versus you were going to have a sandwich, but then you recognize you only had one piece of bread? And because you didn't have two pieces of bread, you decided not to have the sandwich at all. Well, what would it have been like to have 2 other servings of some grain, or some hot leftovers, or a piece of bread and something else? I mean, what would it be like if there were so much more room for you inside to have other options? That it doesn't have to be just one way for you to learn and to make progress. So those are the questions you want to be asking yourself. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much. We're going to talk a little bit more about, I think in our next video, whether, I'm hoping to get one more in this week somehow. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do my best. If I don't, please feel free to ask me questions more about maybe your particular flavor of food, how perfectionism shows up in your food, your health. I see a lot of people struggle with perfectionism with health because they're afraid if they don't do it perfectly, they'll never feel better. They're afraid the way they feel now, they'll always feel this way. And if I can't do it perfect, why bother? Versus, oh, no. Usually for people who are trying to improve health conditions, it's little bits consistently, not all the things all at once perfectly. That's not sustainable. But one health behavior change, make a neural pathway for that to stick, add another, then you'll get to where you want to be because you've built up your capacity to hold all that, and it's natural for you now, versus throw it all against the wall and hope it sticks. That's perfectionism, because you're desperate to get out of how you're feeling. And the reality is that we forget sometimes that how we feel now isn't how we're going to feel forever. But if we're afraid of feeling how we feel forever, and we don't have a lot of good experiences of having relief, we do get pretty triggered, and perfectionism is sometimes what the brain reach our brains will do to get us out of feeling uncomfortable. And I want to really impress upon you while watching this today is that discomfort is not the same thing as a threat. And sometimes we don't have that differentiated. So perfectionism is the tool our brains will use to it's not really for sure if we're going to ever get through this, or if we have help, or we know what to do, or we're doing it right. We don't know, so we'll just try to do everything perfectly. Not sustainable. It's exhausting. You become kind of a prisoner to your routines, and you perform things versus actually you yield, and you can do these things, and it feels safe inside, and it becomes a body, and that becomes what you do. So we just want you to have recovery that sticks. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.